This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, and today I'm going to talk about a culture of addiction to activities versus a culture of creative leisure. Since a young age, children have the parents and schools and kindergartens and all social activities are in order to implement the skills, develop the skills of children. It can be artistic skills, creative skills, linguistic skills, and technological skills these days. Children, also sports activities and everything else, kids are have programs their parents in order to, of course, that they become competitive, because this is also already a competition. They have programmed activities in many cases, especially in the middle and the upper middle class, in order to train and instrumentalize these kids to make them, to transform them into successful future citizens that have already the advantages of having a more refined and structured education, through having everything in programmed and not much free space for freedom, for creative leisure, and just imagine that they don't need the space that should be left for activities that do not require programming or topics or anything, but just pure freedom. So when we talk about freedom, we should understand that freedom is also about, or should be also about, random leisure that we just do not, are not programmed for, that we have to do things that we have to use technology, or we have to enhance our creation, but through painting, music, learning how to paint, learning whatever it is, other skills that it's not that they are not useful. But what I'm trying to say, that we are already programmed to be always, to become addicted to programmed activities, to activities that make us dependent on certain mediums that are, technological mediums, or instruments, or tools, or something that is not pure creation out of our imagination, and that we could that we should enjoy. We should enjoy. Part of our lives should be just to have the joy of creative leisure, which the Italians call the dolce fare niente, which is not fare niente, which is just living. And we do not, and education is not, has never been, about helping us to understand who we are better, in a deeper and more comprehensive way, but to make us comply with a certain order, and to try to transform us, as our parents wish to transform us, in successful citizens through whatever profession or business they think suits that purpose. So when we talk about freedom, our childhood is already the education, and everything else it's already nothing about freedom. It's about programming, it's about indoctrination, it's about instrumentalization through culture, but it's through these activities, through many activities, that we are supposed to be dependent on people that to teach us, or other forms of socialization, programmed activities and programmed socialization that just doesn't make us, that is not about making us more inquisitive, questioning. It's always about conformity. It's always about using our creative imagination, our intelligence, but to be competitive, to defeat others, to take advantage of the circumstances. It is not, we do not build a sense of freedom that is relational, that we understand that others are part of our life, that we should not be competing with themselves for to take advantage of them or their limitations or whatever, whatever. It would be just the opposite, because if you want to have a society that is balanced, we need that. It's not because the thing is, competition is a sin, as Rockefeller said it once. But it's not about being a sin. We know that the people, the elites, do not like competition. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about, that competition is not. We don't need to erase competition. What we need is a balance between competition and cooperation. But if we live in a world where what is normalized is that we need to compete to win, because it's bad to be a loser, and this is the framework where we learn the skills to live, where everything is programmed, the activities are programmed in order to transform us in competitive beings, competitive human resources for the job market or the business market. So we are not educated for freedom. We are not educated to discover and explore our innate capabilities, our unique creative capabilities it is the opposite. We are trained and educated to become a tool. I mean, there are, as I said before, there are many. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you can be happy performing your job, your task, your role. As a professional managerial, as part of the professional managerial class, or as a business owner, or whatever it is, you can use your skills. But most of the time, you are fulfilling a role. You are not really being yourself, or even developing yourself in a holistic way, and that is and in a relational way, because the focus of the activities and programmed activities, leisure activities, professional activities, family activities, most of them are programmed. And even when they are not programmed, they are dependent on mediums more and more. They are commodified, because everything is commodified. Your vacation, everything makes you more addicted and dependent on technology, on money, on things and mediums that are manufactured, that are artificial, that do not that's nothing to do with your development or the use of your creative imagination as part of creative leisure, or as part of just leisure, part of the dolce fare niente. That we have the right to that is part of the dignity of us as human beings. Is not something superfluous. What are superfluous is so many things that we believe we need in order to keep occupied, in order to be happy, in order to feel joy. And again, that is part of the program. That is part of an educational process and a culture that just transforms us into that make us dependent on an economy and a society that is fully commodified. Even our relations are commodified. Our relations with everything, with nature, with people, with other living creatures, with the universe, and then spirituality. Because so many people don't understand that actually we live in a world that so many spiritual activities are commodified. It's not about freedom. It's not about connecting with God or connecting with higher energies. It's all about money, commodification, dependency, addiction. That between us and whatever we want to achieve, there is an intermediary, there is an institution, there is an individual, there is a celebrity, an authority, a leader, a savior. And in the end, it's always about money, because that reflects that all our training since a very young age is to become, it's to learn that that's what it is about. There is nothing else, as if there is nothing else about life but accumulating wealth and private property. And we do not connect these dots. We do not connect them when we are young children. Of course, it's not what we are supposed to do when we are young. And when we are adults, we are already too corrupted and perverse in order to and then we just give it a blind eye, or we just live in permanent we just become hypocrites and cynics, or we do not understand at all what has been done to us. That's what happens probably for most of us. Why? Because we do not have the tools, the intellectual tools, the cultural and ideological tools to break it down, to make it clear that we have been educated and instrumentalized to become tools, nothing else but tools. Because we grow up in a web of deceit that exists to protect the minority at the top of the pyramid, the social pyramid, the social ladder. And for so many of us, when we talk about these issues, they already have a political connotation, a negative political connotation, which means that you have to, if you talk like that, you have to be a communist, a leftist, that is motivated by ideology and nothing else, that doesn't understand life, that we just don't understand that socialism and communism doesn't work, and things like that. So immediately, as part of that program that we are already, that we don't even understand, that the reason why we dismiss it or we associate the analysis, a class analysis, with communism and socialism, and we do not understand that what we are talking about is realism, because there is a thing called reality, okay? That is that sometimes it's almost that we can not associate with its politics. It seems that it's outside politics. And that's what we need to do. That we need to bring reality into the world of politics. But even that is programmed. It's programmed that we are occupied. We occupy our time, our free time, which means that the time that we do not dedicate to studying, if we are students, or to work, if we are workers, so if we are already have a professional life, our free time that should at least be partially dedicated to creative leisure and to develop our analytic skills, and how can we become have more political agency as part of a society, as part of freedom, because how can we talk about freedom and democracy and at the same time have no political agency whatsoever? That is just a contradiction that doesn't exist. You don't have the kind of freedoms we enjoy without if we don't have political agency. It's not exactly freedom. That we can enjoy that kind of freedom in any dictatorship. You don't need a democratic regime, a liberal democratic regime, in order to have those kind of freedoms. The same freedoms you can have them in any political regime, as long as you have the money to buy the stuff and to have freedom of movement as well, because everything depends on money, anyways. And that's the truth, That whether you live in a liberal democracy or you live in a dictatorship or a totalitarian or authoritarian regime, if you have the money, you can enjoy the freedom of movement and freedom of choice, as long as you don't aspire to have political agency. A celebrity culture, it is our heroes, sports heroes, our film actors, and all these mass culture events that attract hundreds of thousands of people as spectators. Of course, they provide us strong emotions of identity, of belonging to some, and worship, and that's a form of socialization. That's a form of feeling that we are part of a movement, and we feel strong emotions while we experience these events. Can be concerts, can be sports, and any kind of sport, basket, football, these sports that are highly emotional, because there is this this competition, which is part of the same structural culture that breathes us in a specific way to transform us into what we are, but we don't even notice that we have been manipulated. It's not exactly that we need to be and behave like this, and to perceive ourselves as this kind of imagining ourselves and the human condition in this way. There are many ways that we can, many types of identity that we can build and identify with, and this culture, it's again an example of exploiting our need to belong. Okay, our social need to belong, and to identify, and this is part of our social nature, our deep social nature, and then we just are always living. We are exercising our social needs through these events that creates strong bonds, strong emotional bonds, and but they do not really develop our social bonds in a good way. It's through tribalization. It's through division. Okay, it's not through the sense of wholeness, the sense of the holistic sense of that we are part of, that there is a web, the culture as a web, as part of the web of nature. No, it is about division, competition, and winning. And as we say, oh, nobody likes to lose. Yes, nobody likes to lose. Why? Because if you associate losing with shame, with inferiority, with everything, with negative emotions and negative labels, if it is a negative label that you are supposed to feel ashamed of it, how can you be, and if we live in this world that is this dichotomy, this division between winning and losing is bad, losing is negative, why would you why would you feel good with losing? And so many of us just think, oh, this is only part of our competitive nature because we are competitive and we want to win. And I mean, you know, it is not like that. It doesn't mean there is no competition. There is competition in nature. That's for sure. But what we do is to transform competition in a tool to divide, in a tool to control. This is not, again, because the ones that want to control us, they don't want competition. They want monopolies. They want cartels. They form cartels in order to control us. So competition is for losers. It has that never been. This is this phrase, as far as I know, was coined by Peter Thiel, and it could not be more accurate. The guy understands it. He understands it. It is us, the losers, okay? In this game, where we live this web of deception that we are supposed to not understand, or at least understand the implications, the consequences of it in our own lives. Because in the end, what we do to ourselves is to make our lives miserable to each other, because what we learn is not to creative and constructive socializing, but is a competition for cramps, and that's how we spend our lives. That's how we waste our lives, and we don't even understand it, or if we understand it, we never put it in under the spotlight. So we never give it the relevance it really has. And that's the main point. I always try to emphasize it. We can understand intellectually, we are able to understand most things. The problem is not to understand them intellectually. The problem is when they become enough relevant to matter, that become really important to us. They become something that we want. We put our will and in it, make it part of a conscious transformative process. We can love and identify with our prisons, and we can love and identify with we can create bonds, effective bonds with our torturers. So that's, everybody knows it, which means that we have programmed activities since we are young, that we have our natural tendencies, okay? And those should be respected. If I have a natural tendency to draw, I should have, it is normal that I feel compelled to draw, not to run, or eventually not to play football with my friends or something. So there are many ways that we can enjoy and evolve and develop skills that at the same time they can be done as part of a culture of creative leisure, instead of a culture of programmed activities, whether they are social activities, which means that involve social groups, it's group activities, or individual activities like playing an instrument, or whatever it is that it doesn't require, it's not part of a group, but as an individual activity. But those activities, again, through training and instrumentalization, we can learn to love something that actually was not natural, a natural tendency, innate tendency. And the social activities, but the thing is it's nothing that's not exactly that is necessarily something wrong with it. The problem is when our lives, and it starts when we are kids, are basically programmed. That we do not have the opportunity to develop the real, and not only programmed, is because our lives are surrounded with artificial tools, with artificial toys, and that we, and in the modern times, with the technological mediums, which we just learn, the kids just learn they become dependent on this kind of toys to learn social skills, and everything is programmed, and not even programmed by their parents. They become addicted and dependent on activities that are controlled by other powers and other influences, and they just instead of learning and developing their creative and use creative leisure, they become dependent on tools, on commodified tools, on commodified mediums to learn social skills, or to not even learn none whatsoever. Because the main idea is to keep us occupied, to keep us dependent on activities that require tools, that requires that we are a part of a group. We love a team. I mean, there's always this idea that in order that the idea is not to develop healthy social bonds. It's not to understand the relevance of everything being relational. It's exactly the opposite. It's about addictions. It's about dependencies. It's about habits that create. It's about learning habits, okay, and behaviors that transform us, that are dependencies, that become us dependent. Not to make us free. That's the opposite. And then we, instead of learning that that everything is relational, and then we can learn from each other, and we can be much more, we can build a culture of tolerance and reciprocity, a culture of empathy, and compassion, of solidarity, that part of a web of course this is culture is it has to be, it is a holistic culture. It's not a culture of separation. And then we know that all of us have limits and flaws and biases and prejudices, and we just learn with each other that we correct each other, we complement each other, because all of us are bits and pieces of other people's knowledge and experience. And this is not about imposing anything or following anybody, nor depending on authorities or leaders or saviors or heroes or celebrities or whoever it is to teach us. We learn nothing, we just share. And we are not inferiors nor superiors. We are living beings, and as human beings in our case, we created these very sophisticated, complex systems, but it doesn't mean that we are more free now than we have been, or we were when we are supposedly savages, as we call them, as we supposedly civilized label the peoples that were not civilized. Without understanding that what we have been doing to ourselves is not exactly to make us more free or more conscious of the human condition and human nature, but to transform us into tools and to divide us. And of course, everything is packaged into a meritocracy, into the mythology of merit, which means that you can justify inequality, you can justify injustice, because whoever the winners deserve what they have. The losers are the ones to blame by not sacrificing enough, by not working enough, or by just being stupid. As if life should be about being all the time with programmed activities, be all the time on duty, you know? How can you free yourself? How can you relax your mind? How can you connect with the web of nature? How can you even try to understand where does our our problems, our anxiety and despair and depression, where does it come from? Where is the disconnection and the disruption and the confront, the dissociation? Where does it come from? How does our relations are so difficult? Is it because of our nature and our condition, or is it because of the way we are programmed, the way we are instrumentalized, the way the culture, that the dominant culture we have The dominant political paradigms and civilizational paradigms and economic paradigms have been tailored, have been developed and used by the people among us that are the worst people among us. And they have been able throughout the ages to use every tool of the toolbox to build a legal system to authorize them to control us, to grab the power and accumulate the wealth, and to have the narratives, the moral narratives, the identity and ideological narratives that makes us honor them. And when we have our idols, sports idols, political idols, I mean, whatever, and we do not understand that the purpose of them, the purpose of this kind of culture, that we look, that they are supposed to be the role models, the inspiration, the ones that we even name our children after them. Okay? It is the culture of that we just, it's a kind of a culture that we just do not understand that this is against us. This is a culture not only of division but of misperception of our social needs and social skills. To only one thing: deception and control, or deception for control. And of course, in modern times, technoscientism and technofixism as part of this culture of programmed occupation and programmed education to become what is important, what we need to focus ourselves, what kind of dependencies are the new religions, you know, that we are supposed to understand the world through them, that the belief systems that allows us to make sense of the world, to make sense of ourselves, to make sense of our relations, how we relate to each other and to the web of life. And of course, this is wrong. Because again, many of you might think, so what? I tell you, there are, everything has consequences, okay? Ideas have consequences, social systems, cultural systems, economic systems, political systems, and whatever kind of system or belief system has consequences. So, if you believe that the way society is organized is not programmed, is not supervised, is not it is not under the control of the elites. And I'm not, I do not have the tendency to be conspiratorial. I know I do know that conspiracies exist. It's not something fictional. There are many conspiracies, theories, and hypotheses that, of course, are wrong or very exaggerated. But there are also conspiracies, facts, or conspiracies, theories that can be backed by facts. Conspiracies, hypotheses. Okay, the point is, just because our reality looks normal, looks natural, looks functional, and we just live, okay? We just go about, we just work and study and have our hobbies, have our families, and we try to achieve our goals. That's fine. I mean, everything seems normal. Everything seems as if it has always been like that. But as we also know, the reality of these systems is always changing. And who has the power to change it? Our reality, our political, economic and cultural reality and social reality, for sure, is not the same as 40 years ago. You know, there was a shift. The system, the political system, the structure of the political and economic system was kept, but the tools, the policies, the laws have been changing in order to favor certain activities. That's why we live in financialized economies, especially the American and the British economy, but also other economies, and that was not the case 5 decades ago. Of course, the financial and the banking sector has always been important and part of the structure of power and control, but the financialization of the economy, and so the neoliberalization of the world, the neoliberal globalization was part of a program. It was not random. It didn't happen just out of the blue. It was programmed. There were objectives to be achieved, and we were not asked, because we are subjects, because we are not as free as we imagine, or we do not live in democracies as we imagine. These people, the rulers, the elites, the ruling elites, they do not ask us for permission to rewrite the laws, to change the rules, to rig the game in their favor. It's never in our favor. So our reality, the reality where we live, and all its components, you know, all how we spend the time, how our time is organized in activities, which programmed activities and non-programmed that don't leave much time in our lives for creative leisure and and the development of critical analysis, sustained critical analysis that requires training. It has to be also an organized activity. It is in order to acquire the skills and the knowledge and the tools to become an effective critical analyst of the reality of the very culture that shapes who we are, how we perceive ourselves, and again, how we build our relationships, how we are unable to really develop different, to create different social bonds, much more tolerant. Not merely as tools and cogs of a machine that has only one purpose: to use us and spit us. Of course, it would not work if it would not have a reward system. There was not a hierarchical reward system that makes us comply and be accomplices and become accomplices. That's all part of the same problem. And that we need to, when I need that we, who are those we? We are the we. The we are those of us that feel exploited, alienated, that do not have lives fulfilled, that can see the divisions, and that we feel that we do not, our lives do not have the purpose and meaning that they should have, that we should aspire to have. And it is possible. It's not an utopian. It's just because it's the system in place just wants to keep us enslaved, to keep us occupied, to keep us entertained, to keep us exactly alienated from ourselves. And there is only one purpose: division and control, or division to control, atomization to control, tribalization to control. And the web of deception, that's why this is important to understand, that everything that I'm talking about is part of a web of deception. That where many interests shape it and make it and transform it into a maze where it's almost impossible to find a way out. And meanwhile, we just waste our lives in fights that most of the time we lose, because there is no way we can win them. We are the weakest link, and we can only become the strongest link with unity. But that unity can only be built consciously through a conscious transformative process that is much more than mere intellectual awakening. it needs to be a conscious process. You know, it is a process that we train our will, our critical skills, and it takes time. It needs to be holistic. It needs to be. It cannot be. It needs to be to cut the umbilical cord with this culture of division, this culture of programmed activities that make us that it may transform us into experts, that make us transform us into successful professionals, and to become wealthy, to become recognized and famous and whatever. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that we become better human beings, or even that we fulfill or we feel connected to ourselves, because the objectives are always outside of us, because they are created as purposes that do not necessarily exist inside of ourselves, but it's achievements, is economic achievements, professional achievements that we connect to ourselves, but sometimes we do not really are not having a transformative process of ourselves as human beings and as social beings. And that is, in my opinion, it is very important, it is crucial that we understand it and its implications. Okay, I'm going to end here. Thanks for listening. I will be back soon.